G'day viewers, welcome to San Bernardino. We're going to learn how to set up and drive the MP36PH, which is in front of us. Looks kind of like a cross between a dog and a space shuttle. Alright, we're going to open the door, put our cursor back to the stairs and climb up through the wall as it happens. Cool. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is open up the fuse cabinet and hit myself in the face with it. I'm going to turn on the TMS control. You notice the switch was already in the up position, but you need to click it to turn it on. So you can turn on the front number lights, step and platform lights. We're going to pop over here and check our HEP panel. We can see that the left HEP and right HEP are already on. HEP stands for head and power. We don't need to do anything because it's already running. I've never found a situation where it's not in this locomotive. Down here on this panel, we're going to turn on our gauge lights. If this was trailing, we'd turn on our red marker lights. We're going to check the engine run, gen field, and control and fuel pump. They are all on. I normally find them on. Technically, the gen field should be off when you get into a locomotive to stop it walking away, and you would have to turn it on. But in the game, it's always on. Open up our window. Next thing I want to do is put our reverser in, and I'm going to put that to forwards, and you'll hear that the diesel engine revs up a little, and that'll help you in a moment with charging the brakes. Make sure our headlights are on bright with auxin lights. Mine already are. You'll usually find them in off, but because I've got a rail driver, it's just copied the switch. So let's check our lights out the front. They are fine. So now we want to press the auxiliary lights button and pop out here again, and they've started to flash, which is correct. You can see a jet flying up over there. Alright, next thing we want to do is our brakes. So the first thing I'm going to do is just jiggle our handle to make sure it really is in idle, because I've got a rail driver and it's a bit finicky. It's still not. I want it to actually be in idle. There we go. I think it's in idle now. And the first thing I'm going to do is, you can see there is a brake applied because we're in handle off. I'm going to apply the independent brake, which is this one, which will apply the brakes on the locomotive only. Then I'm going to release this brake. I'm going to cut in the train brake to passenger. And then I'm going to release the train brake. And what I want to see is the brakes charge up. Now, looking at our gauges over here, the red needle is our main reservoir. That wants to get up to about 140 psi. You can see it's actually dropping while it's charging the train at the moment. It will pick up. The white one is the equalizing reservoir. That's used to apply the brakes on the locomotive. That's where the air comes from when the brake pipe air reduces. It's a very complex topic. I don't think I'll go into it in a simple tutorial. The white needle over here represents the brake pipe, but note it's measuring the brake pipe at the locomotive end. The very fact that the compressor is still running and our main res has not reached 140 tells me that the train is charging up, and it's probably still quite a low pressure at the other end of the train. The red needle is the amount the brakes are applied in the cylinders on this locomotive only. And that's fully applied because the independent brake is fully applied. Looking at our other gauges here while we wait, the arc around here lights up like representing a needle on an analog gauge in a digital way, and we have actual digits representing the speed in a digital way as well. Over on the right, we've got our brake and power gauge. When it's going off into the left, and you would have pushed this handle back away from you to go into dynamic brakes, that will start slowing the train down using the traction motors, not using the brakes on the wheels. When you are powering, so you've pulled this handle towards you, you will be in the green zone as much as possible. The green zone is for the life of the power unit, the prime mover inside the locomotive. If you're in the red zone, you're working it too hard. Now you'll notice that you can stay in the red zone for a little while, so a few minutes. If you stay in it too long, you'll be over revving the locomotive and it won't like you. You can see our main res pressure has come up to 140. You can hear the compressors stopped. So now I'm going to do a brake test, and to do that I'm going to do a fairly light application, and I'm going to release the independent brake at this point because I want to see that the train brakes do actually come on. So I'll just move that again so we see the brake needle moving for the locomotive, as it came down when we released the independent brake. So the train brakes will be on very hard at this point, but not the locomotive because I released it with the independent. We just want to see that each time we move, the brakes actually hold. So we'll go to full service. Let's release those again. And before we start to roll, just as they come off, there we go, we're just starting to roll backwards now. I'm going to apply the brake again, just so we see a little bit of movement. Actually takes quite a lot to get some movement out of this beast. Alright, this time I'm going to dump the air because I want to see that the brake system will recharge. So I've gone into emergency. You'll notice that's tripped a thing called the PCS, which is a valve that dumps the air out of the braking system. To fix that, we need to make sure our handle is well and truly in neutral, which is just sitting on the setup for dynamic brakes there, which is no good. So neutral it is. Thank you, rail driver. Alright, and neutral on the reverser. And we're going to come back into the suppression position. You can see that the train is starting to charge back up. It won't completely release the brakes in this position. Alright, let's release now. You can see the train brakes pumping up the rest of the way. And before it releases completely and lets it start rolling, I'm just going to apply the independent brake again. Now we'll give that a while for the train to charge up again. I think we've already talked about the windows we have. Up here you can see the train monitoring system, which is not fully implemented in here. We can see that the brake applied light is on. If you want to turn on some air conditioning, you can. I'll just switch that over to vent because I'm tough and I can handle the California heat. If you want a cab light, there's one up here that you can turn on and off. It's conveniently near the door, so when you get in the dark, you can set things up. Alright, that's nearly charged up now, so I'm just going to go into forward on the reverser, which is the handle over here again. Let's test our horn. That seems to work fine. Let's turn off the bell, which was activated when I put the horn on. Let's try the bell by itself. Also works fine. We also have a horn sequencer. You need to be going, I think it's over about 20 or 25 mile an hour to use this, but it plays the 14L long, short, long for you as you approach crossings. I usually do it myself. Alright, we have a 10-mile limit towards San Bernardino. Now, I'm still waiting for the compressor to come off before I try and do anything. It's just about to, I think. I'm watching my main reservoir gauge there, and it's up to 140. There we go, there goes the compressor. So we now know that everything's fully charged with air. So I'm going to go up to about notch 2 or 3, wherever the rail driver happens to settle. You wouldn't do this with a freight train, go straight into a notching like that. And I've seen the power coming on the gauge over there, so on our rightmost gauge, so I released the independent brake when I saw the power needle start to move. And prototypically you would leave the bell on in a yard, but I don't like listening to it, so I turn it off. And I'm going to throttle back now to 1 because we have a 10 mile an hour limit and we are already just about there. So I'm going to sit on notch 1 because this is slightly uphill. We may even need to go into notch 2 from time to time to maintain our speed. Now, I don't have the current speed turned on in the HUD because I prefer to watch my train gauges. We are dropping, so I'm just going to come back into P2. Thank you, rail driver. Rail driver is the controller that I use to run the train. It's the advanced controller that this game supports. Still only doing 6 mile an hour, so let's go back to notch 3 for a bit. Now I'll just build up a little bit of speed because I'm going to drop back into 1 now, and we'll just put up with whatever speed we get because I'm not going to touch anything now because that will start the timer for the alerter. If you change any controls, it resets the timer. because I want to first show you resetting the alerter, and then I want to show you what happens if you don't reset the alerter. Hopefully it'll go off before we grind to a halt going up this hill. And the rail driver's just moved the throttle handle for me, negating this test, so I'll just pop it back up into notch 2. Thank you, rail driver. Now, why don't you just sit on 2? How about 2? Yes, great. Alright then, now we'll try the alerter countdown again. And hopefully rail driver won't move that handle for us. It's a bit of a finicky controller, the rail driver. It's quite annoying sometimes. So we're still just waiting. We'll hear a tone at some point. It takes about a minute or so. And the first time it goes off, I'm going to reset it to show you how to do that. You reset the alerter pressing Q on your keyboard, or circle, or B on your controller, depending on its flavour. Now, we can trail through the points in the yard. You don't need to set them. They'll just flop over by themselves as we go through them in this direction. You can see this locomotive does have suspension because we're bouncing a bit at low speed as we go over these point blades. There's the alerter. I'm going to reset that with the Q key. Again, you can use B or circle depending on your controller flavour. Now the next time it goes off, I'm going to ignore it. And what we're going to hear, it's going to go from beep, beep to beep, and then it's going to put the brakes on, and we'll have to recover from that again. You wouldn't normally do this while you were driving. I just want to show you, so when it goes off for you, you know what to do. So we'll continue cruising along. We are approaching a caution signal. I tend to treat the signals in the game relatively simply, and they are either caution, or they are full track speed, or they are stop. Of course, the signals actually show a lot more aspects than that. If you're interested in learning the local signal aspects for your route, there's a lot of documentation available for each route. And even in the same country, routes across the country are quite different. Here goes our alerter again. I'm going to let it stop the train this time. No hands, see? There it goes. It's stopping us now. So what we do is we react by putting our throttle back into idle or position 0. Come back to the, jiggle this a bit, come back to the neutral position on the reverser, put our brakes into full service or even suppression, and we can see that we're starting to charge things back up again now. That means the PCS has reset, and we can see it's starting to release the brakes. So I'm going to apply the independent brake, and I'm going to release the train brakes, and we're going to wait while that charges. That independent application will be enough to hold us here, or it should. I'm also going to go back into forwards now, because I can, while we wait for things to charge. We can see our equalising reservoir has already charged up to 110, the train pipe has already charged up to 110. But we can see that the main res is still charging, and we can hear the compressor chugging away behind us. So we wouldn't be able to release the brakes now if we wanted to, because the back of the train is still charging up. It will be just a little while longer. You can try and power through it if you want to, but it's not particularly good for the system. So we're almost there. We're up to 135 now. If you don't want the alerter, you don't have to turn on that TMS switch at the start, but of course turning on the safety systems means more points. I don't care about points, but I know a lot of players do. We are just about charged up. I should put the second webcam back on with these tutorials so you can see it's not me jiggling away on the handle there, it's just doing that by itself. Alright, we're nearly there now. We should hear the compressor cut out in a moment. As our left-hand red needle has reached 140, there we go. So a couple of honks on the horn to let people know we're going to move. Because you never know who's come wandering over to see, hey, why is he stopped there? Let's go up to notch 3. We can see the power gauge coming into the green, so I'll release the independent brake. And off we go. And I'll stop the bell. That's the B on the keyboard. If you're playing on a console, there's no reason why you can't use a plug-in keyboard. Some of them even support a Bluetooth keyboard. I'd certainly encourage you to use a keyboard with the game because it makes driving a lot easier when you have the additional controls over and above the ones represented on your controller. We have reached the speed limit, so I'm just going to drop our power back a little. We're about to come into a 30 mile an hour zone and we're starting to speed now, so I'll drop the power back a little more. As our gradient has eased off, there we go, we're back on about 11 mile an hour now, 12 mile an hour. That could be a meeting with the boss with no coffee when he says things like, let's run this up the flagpole. I'm not sure if the horn sequencer will actually run at this speed, but let's try it. No, we're going too slow for it. So I'll do it. 14L, long. Long. Imagine living there, next to this noise. Short. And as you come into the crossing, long. And you've maintained the long all the way through the crossing. So your last long can be quite long if you're going this very slowly like we are. Let's get rid of the bell. Looks like a little homeless encampment off to our right there. It's actually really good to see the little touches like that, the rocks and the rubbish or trash that's sitting around, and the boxes left over from the Amazon box thieves who have ripped open a container train. Just good to see. We are allowed to accelerate to 30 miles an hour now, but we can see we've got a 25 coming up, so we're not going to go past that. Your speed goes up when the back of your train passes the speed change, and on this route, generally speaking, there aren't a lot of speed signs. You're just expected to know. So you learn the route or you use the HUD. Either one is fine. You can use a combination of both if you wish. And before someone says lazy developers, the route isn't signposted. Off again. You can see a freight train wandering away over there. I get to see the freight trains because I have Cajon Pass and Sherman Hill installed. There's even quite a few freight services. We have a caution signal, and our friend over there on the left is waiting for us. Probably because I took so long doing brake tests and showing you things that he has to wait. Now, we're not actually going to stop at San Bernardino. We're stopping at the next one, San Bernardino downtown. I'm just going to brake a little bit. So we are going just a little bit quick. And I'm going to turn on my bell as we go through the platform. Honk at the guy that's beyond the yellow line. Now you'll notice in this train putting on the air brake initially put the air brakes on, and now it's also applying some dynamic brake. And you'll probably see it start to, you would see it release the air brake if the rail driver would stop jiggling it. So if I put a little bit more on, You see the dynamic brakes have come on into the yellow zone on the gauge on the right there, along with the air brakes. So that happens automatically in this train. It automatically does dynamic braking and air braking. If you want to do just dynamic braking on its own, you can move the throttle handle into the setup position for a few seconds, about 10 or so. You'll hear the engine revs change, which they have now done. And I can move into the braking zones. And you'll see the needle move into the yellow zone. The more braking I give it, the more it moves. So you can use that to control your speed when you're going down steep gradients, like we are at the moment. It's much more efficient and better for the locomotive to use the dynamic brakes over the air brakes. They are starting to creep up, so I'm going to grab another notch of dynamic brakes. We're probably going fast enough for the horn sequencer now, so let's try that. And we've got another caution signal here, very low sight on it. Still not going fast enough for the horn sequencer yet, so we'll have to do it. You can also see that we're coming into San Bernardino downtown. So I'm going to start applying some air brake as well, because I don't want to come flying into the platform completely out of control. Come off the air now. Dynamics is still on, still slowing us down. Dynamics will lose their effectiveness when you get a little bit above about 8-9 mile an hour. And they also lose their effectiveness anything over about 35 miles an hour. Let's just come back to idle. Didn't quite make the stop marker there, so we're just going to move ahead just a little bit more. Now I'll put the power on, start moving, we'll get to the stop marker, power off straight away. Can be a little bit finicky in some places about your stop markers on this route. That is quite deliberate because they need you to clear the signal block. Alright, full service on the brakes. And that's going to complete our objective, but I'm going to return back to the train in free roam, because what I want to do is show you how to change ends. So I'm going to put the handle into handle and stop this annoying bell. I'm going to put the handle into handle off, and I'm going to cut out the brakes, bring our reverser back to the neutral position and take it out. Take our headlights back to off, and I don't need to do anything else here, so we're just going to hop up now, and I'm going to turn on our marker lights down here. I'm going to turn off our gauge lights because we're not going to be in here. Turn off the gen field, even though we found it on. You can leave the front number and step and platform lights on, that won't be an issue at all. And come over here, open the door, and we've got a bit of a tight squeeze there. And there we have it. We have driven the renewable fueled Metrolink MP36PH-3C. This thing must smell like fish and chips. Anyway, that's it for that. So we're all ready now to wander up to the other end and take over the cab car, and I'll do that in the next video. Look out for it in the playlist on TSW5 tutorials. If this has been helpful for you, please like and subscribe. If you've got any questions or comments you'd like to make, please make those down below in the video, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. Alrighty, have fun folks, and see you later. Bye now.
We played a game.